Hello, can you hear me?
Welcome, Yoda. What would you like to say?
I would like to touch on you talked about earlier with the other guy, the cosmological argument.
I didn't bring it up. Somebody else did.
Yeah, he brought it up, but you talked about it together. And do you think it's the cosmological argument is a good argument for God?
I think all of those arguments collectively, when they are cashed out as being revelational of God, is bulletproof.
Okay, so I mean, so you don't have like one specific argument for
No, I
you to
use
believe, or
I use the transcendental argument that the world exemplifies design and intentionality, and it could only do so if and only if God did it. And this accounts for why there's reason, truth, and intelligibility in our world, and the denial therein results in a complete absurdity. In other words, that you're in a non-intentional world, you're in a non-design world. Therefore, when you speak about universals and particulars, you speak about continuity, discontinuity, you talk about intelligible states. There's nothing within the system that is identifiable that secures that. So you don't have a world that is not exemplematic of design and intentionality is a world with no intelligibility. So you either accept that the world exemplifies design or not. And if you don't, your world doesn't mean anything.
well,
So
I mean,
let me ask
according
you
to
this.
my logic.
Let me ask you this question. Does the complexity of biological systems exemplify design in any sense?
Not necessarily designed by a conscious creator.
Hey, listen carefully. Does it exemplify design in any sense?
Can I ask, when you mean design, do you mean by like? I mean, you're probably referring to God, but I mean, when I hear
No,
design, I also hear evolution
I'm
as a
just
design.
saying, does the world exemplify design, that there's something that produced these functional states?
Not necessarily something conscious.
Okay, so you're opting for an illusion of design.
I
Okay.
mean, I believe in that evolution has created
I
this.
know you do. That is a worldwide deception that people are brainwashed in. But what you don't realize is that when you reason probabilistically about evolution, it's virtually impossible for it to occur. So, in order to believe in evolution, you have to abandon probabilistic and statistical reasoning in order to accept it. I could give you a direct quotation from one of the world's greatest experts on evolution that says basically that. So,
So you're saying that the chance of all the evolution events occurring and
okay,
resulting in what's happening.
okay. So, do you understand that in order to have complex biological systems, you have to have the complex molecular machinery of the cell, and you have to have the extreme complexity of the genetic code for the animal kingdom? Do you understand that first?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so within the DNA code, it has to code for proteins and other regulatory functions such as embryological and biological development, right? So
Yeah.
just coding for proteins alone will not make life. So you need far more complex biological blueprint than just coding for proteins. But if we take one protein, most proteins are on an average protein would be 300 amino acids or greater. So let's say we start with a protein that's 100 amino acids long. In order to code for that, that'll be 1 in 20 to the 100th power. I'll just simplify it even to a lesser degree. 10 to the it's 1 in 10 to the 100th power, 100 zeros. That's just for one protein. Now, if you had a trillion squared Earth-like planets over 13.7 billion years, we could say that that's 10 to the power of 50 trials, 10 followed by 50 zeros. So you would still be 1 in 10 followed by 50 zeros just for one protein. In order for evolution to take place, probabilistic and statistically, random variation, random mutations aided by step-by-step survival has to produce the entire genome of the entire animal kingdom. So you're talking about 1 in 10 followed by more than tens of thousands of zeros. So do you understand the improbability before I move on?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous.
So Dr. Eugene Koonin is a world-renowned expert on evolution and microbiology. He is a scholar
Wait,
of
what was his name?
Eugene Koonin, Koonin, Koonin. He is a staunch evolutionist and anti-creationist. In his book, The Logic of Chance, remember, he's a staunch advocate of evolution. He basically says that, in his own words, that evolution happening on this planet, right, in a one-off large universe is virtually impossible to occur, but with a multiverse, it's guaranteed. Now, what he's basically saying in the book is that absent a multiverse, evolution is virtually impossible. Okay? Now,
Yeah.
why would one of the world's greatest experts on evolution and microbiology, mind you, say that evolution is virtually impossible from a statistical point of view? A virtual impossibility means that the only possibility actually resides on paper, not in the real world. So, but you see, you were taught that if you're in a universe that's old enough and big enough, there's enough time and trials for mutations for evolution to be happen. But Dr. Eugene Koonin says, no, it's virtually impossible to happen absent a multiverse. You see, you have been misled that
No, I don't think.
listen to me. Do you agree that the coding sequences in DNA for proteins require hundreds of amino acids? Do you accept that?
Yeah, I believe it's 50 minimum or something.
Each coding sequence for one amino acid among many is 1 in 20. So if you have 2 coding sequences for 2 amino acids, it's 1 in 20 times 1 in 20, which you have 1 in 400. So each additional unit of information in the biological code grows the improbability exponentially. Do you understand that before I move on?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so for a protein, an average protein is 300 amino acids or greater. We're going to start with a protein that has 100 amino acids. So it is far greater than 10 followed by 100 zeros. That's just for a rudimentary protein. Now, when you're talking about the coding sequences for a microorganism, right, you're talking about, let's say, 30,000 coding pairs within the DNA for the least complex microorganisms. In order for evolution to be true, random variation aided by step-by-step survival is going to have to produce the code for the entire genetic code of the animal kingdom. So if you were to guess, it would be 1 in 10 followed by how many zeros? How many zeros do you think that is?
I don't know.
Yeah, I already told you, it's tens of thousands of zeros. This is not something I'm pulling out of.
I'm not a biologist, so I don't know the specifics when it comes to the start of evolution.
If a rudimentary protein is 1 in 10 followed by more than 100 zeros, that's just for a protein. Just one protein.
But when it happens, I mean, natural selection will
you forget
filter them out.
The issue is not natural selection. I will concede to you entirely a step-by-step survival. That's not the issue. Random variation has to incrementally build the information sequences. So a protein that has 100 amino acid is 1 in 10 followed by more than 100 zeros. Okay, that's just for one protein. So if one protein is 1 in 10 followed by 100 zeros, then the improbability of random variation aided by natural selection to produce the entire genome of the animal kingdom has to be vastly greater than 1 in 10, followed by 10,000s, more than tens of thousands of zeros.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you invoke natural selection. Okay, I can grant that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to.
No, sir. It's not that complicated. Okay, in evolution, you have a random variation. Well, random variation of what? We're talking about the genetic code, which is the biological blueprint, which produces the hard copy of the organism called the phenotype. Look, if we have a fertilized chicken egg, right? The DNA code that's in there is going to replicate over and over, and it's going to give instructions for it to continue to divide to produce the actual physical body plan of the chicken, not only in terms of embryological development, but its development until an adult stage, right? Now, that code is extremely long and complex in terms of information sequencing. Now, in order for evolution to be true, it has to code for the entire animal kingdom.
Well, yeah, individually,
That's
of course,
correct.
an animal codes for itself.
So if a protein is 1 in 10 followed by 100 zeros, imagine what the improbability it is for the entire animal kingdom. That's why Dr. Eugene Koonin says that it's virtually impossible absent a multiverse. So this idea, the idea that an old enough and large enough universe with lots of Earth-like planets is enough time and trials for mutations to produce biological systems. Look, if I gave you 1 trillion squared Earth-like planets, that would be 10 to the power of 24 zeros. 1 trillion squared Earth-like planets. Even that amount of time and trials is not enough to code even for one protein. So what I'm saying to you is, in order for you to believe in evolution, you have to abandon probabilistic reasoning.
And that's according to the guy stated?
No, I'm telling you...
According to his math. But I don't think one guy can disprove thousands and millions of scientists.
You're not understanding. I didn't say Eugene Koonin is disproving it. He's an advocate of evolution. He believes devoutly that evolution happened. But he's honest enough to admit that there's a statistical improbability that is so great that it is accurately qualified as being virtually impossible absent a multiverse. He says in the book that with a multiverse, evolution is guaranteed to occur. You know what we call that in philosophy? That's called special pleading.
I understand.
So if
just
you
because
believe
he comes to a conclusion about how hard it is.
Look, I'm trying to explain to you the reason why you so strongly believe in evolution is because that's what they told you is scientifically shown, and that because this belief is pervasive, you can't bring yourself to believe that all of these smart scientists could be wrong.
Look, I would rather trust thousands of smart scientists.
All right, listen. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you believe that all of the fossilized remains that we have is a powerful testimony of a Darwinian gradualistic evolution?
I don't know.
Well,
I can say that. I mean, you can do carbon dating and stuff to see how old they are.
No. Radiometric isotope dating is based upon circular reasoning.
No.
Yeah, it is. I had this discussion for over an hour with a young man just recently today. Radiometric isotope dating, you must first presuppose that the Earth is eons old first before you can... What?
Why is that? What makes you say that? What's the reason?
If you don't presuppose that, then you can't count backwards.
Okay, so when you do carbon dating, you see how long it takes for
young man. Listen, stop, young man. Listen to me. You're not educating me on radiometric isotope dating. I'm far more educated on radiometric isotope dating than you are. Okay?
Maybe.
I'm trying to explain to you. If you presuppose, if you hold to not an old Earth, and you count backwards from an isotope, is radiometric isotope dating then feasible to come up with a 1.5 million year date?
If you presuppose the Earth cannot be that old, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, no, you're presupposing the negation of the Earth being eons old.
I mean, you don't need that presupposition. That's
Okay,
not
all right, listen. All right, I'm going
You
to try
say you
one
need it,
more
so that's
time.
wrong.
I'm going to try one more time because, contrary to popular opinion, I am a patient person. I'm going to try one more time. You don't know what you're talking about. Before radiometric isotope dating was put on the table to calculate the age of isotopes in rocks, they presupposed that the Earth and all of its contents were eons old. Because they presuppose that the Earth is eons old, they said, hey, look, since these rocks are really old, we can count backwards based upon the rate of radioactive decay of the isotope to its alleged parent element. And then because the rock is eons old, we can figure out how old it is. You have to first presuppose that the rock is as old, if not older, than the putative parent element. Do you understand that?
Okay, I understand that what you're
Good.
saying.
So how do you establish that the rock is as old, if not older, than the putative parent element? How do you figure that out first before you start counting backwards from the
I'll do
isotope?
what?
How do you figure out scientifically that the rock is as old, if not older, than the putative parent element that decayed into the daughter element?
I don't know. I'm not a.
Okay,
I
so
don't study it.
because you've been brainwashed into radiometric isotope dating that it is this solid scientific way to determine the age of rocks. But it's based upon circular reasoning that the rock is as old, if not older, than the alleged parent element. So then you count backwards from the daughter element to the parent element. You say, look, since it's as old, if not older, than the parent element, we can figure out how old it is. That's circular reasoning. Okay?
Yeah.
They didn't tell
I
you that in
understand.
school. Yeah, they didn't tell you that in school, did they? All right, we're going to move on to somebody else.
All right. Could I ask one more question?
Looks like we're not getting any intelligent opposition tonight. What an embarrassment to the skeptic community.